Won't you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion. For the sake of the world, this delusion. It's gotta go. Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience Live. I'm Matt Dillahunty. I am joined by the president of the Atheist Community of Austin, Jen Peeples. I just love being able to say that because we haven't actually done this show together since that
I
happened.
know.
That's
I know. We
awesome.
haven't done a show in forever.
Yeah.
Months.
And this is show 828, which isn't significant at all, but I mean, you could make it significant if you wanted to. It just strikes me as odd that I remember sitting in the other studio and saying, oh, we're only 75 shows away from 666. And now
Yeah.
it's like 828, so who knows? Like, pick out the next numerologically significant number and
Yeah.
we'll start a countdown to it. So I can't really do kind of the announcement stuff that had stuck in my head.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
hey, it's the Atheist Experience. We're live. It's a live call-in show. We take calls from people. We want to know what you believe and why. The why part is probably pretty important because primarily it's about trying to figure out why we do or don't believe the same things that you do. And we'll take a bunch of callers. They'll have the phone number up for you. Actually, all the lines are busy right now. There's one thing I want to go over really quickly, and then I'll pass it off to Jen, who's going to talk a little bit about ad hominem attacks.
Yeah.
But today in Austin starts a new initiative called Explore God, and a bunch of billboards went up around town. There's 325 plus churches have signed on to this. Basically, somebody who made a bunch of money on the internet decided they were going to put up billboards to do this new Explore God initiative. They put up a website, exploregod.com. It's a bunch of slick videos with people offering their opinions about what they think about God. And the local news came over and did a quick interview with me last week, and it aired, I think it was a week and a half ago, because it aired last Monday. And I won't say they misquoted me. They didn't. They showed the footage as I said it. I'm not even sure that they really misrepresented me, but what aired on the news was not really representative of the whole story. There's a little bit more online at their website. I talked about this on Facebook, but the nuts and bolts of it is that I spent 30 minutes or so answering questions of what I thought about the Explore God initiative, and I'll sum that up for you really quickly. I'm okay with it. I'm actually encouraging people to explore God. After all, that's how I got here. I think that this is nothing new. It's the megachurch equivalent on the internet. It's, hey, 325 churches. If you can get that many together, you know there's a problem. Probably church attendance dropping off, and they're pretty desperate to see what they can do to revitalize. And the rock bands haven't actually worked out, and the tattooed, spiky-haired preachers in casual clothes talking about how you need to love people instead of hellfire and brimstone hasn't really done quite as much as they might have hoped. And since they can't get answers directly from the source, it makes sense that they would sit around and see what other people's opinions about God were. I encourage this sort of thing. And we went through and we had a discussion about all that, and then near the end of the interview, he said, well, I think what I'm really getting at is, don't you think this is a big waste of money? And that's when I knew what the angle of the story was going to be, and I explained that, yeah, you could look at this as a big waste of money. After all, Austin's got a homeless problem. There's plenty of other places we could be spending money. But I also added that you could say the same thing about money that was spent on billboards for atheist organizations, probably to a lesser extent since, you know, ours have actually been effective. And this one maybe too, but my thing was this was all about free speech and free exercise, and I encourage them, and I don't have any objections to it, and they could look at some of the things that I've done and say that I wasted my money. I know I wasted some money yesterday just shopping around and buying the wrong stuff, or buying things I didn't need. So that the money angle was never my primary objection. It was the way they wanted to tell the story, and sure enough, on Monday night when the report, it was wealthy internet entrepreneur buys tons of billboards around Austin. All the churches think it's awesome, and this atheist thinks it's a waste of money. All of which is true, but it doesn't really represent, you know, the whole truth of the story. And I also pointed out that churches do often help the homeless. And I thought it was funny that they only showed the first half of my response, cutting out my clarification of it, and then immediately said, so-and-so says that churches have been helping the homeless for years, which, they could have just let me say it, and then it would have, I don't know. Anyway, that's all I had on that front. The news is going to feed you whatever they want to feed you. By and large, I don't have a bunch of complaints, except that, as I pointed out in the clip that's online, if you really want to explore God, why didn't anybody ask me to be a part of the Explore God project? I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about this before the show. We actually support people exploring God. And actually, if you go to the website and you look at the videos, again, we talked about this before the show. They're incredibly well produced. It's a beautiful website. I'm kind of envious of the production values there. But unfortunately, the arguments are bad. It's the same bad arguments that we've been dealing with on this show for as long as the show's been in existence.
And some of them aren't even arguments.
Yeah, they're not.
it's
It's
like-
just a...
A lot of them begin with this presumption that God exists.
Yeah.
Why does God allow suffering? Well, I think you've kind of put the cart before the horse there. Maybe we got to figure out whether or not this God fellow has got anything at all to do with any of this. But so that's all I wanted to cover on the news angle. But we'll be taking calls shortly. But Jen's got something to educate us all about right quick.
Yeah, I wanted to talk briefly today about ad hominem attacks, because I see people throwing that out there all too often, apparently without really understanding what that means. Okay, some people seem to be thinking that an ad hominem attack is when someone calls you a name you don't like. So, I may think that Matt is an asshat, but that says absolutely nothing about, his argument. And in fact, that's not an ad hominem attack. That's actually one step lower than an ad hominem attack. It's just plain name calling. Okay. An ad hominem attack is something that attacks the person instead of the argument. So, for example, I was engaged in an online debate with atheists, actually on the TV list on email. It's been several years ago. And the guy got apparently mad at me or something and decided to dismiss my argument by claiming that I only thought that way because I was just an angry middle-aged woman. And it's like, okay. If he thought he was insulting me, he was incorrect, because I don't think there's anything particularly wrong about being legitimately angry with something, nor is there anything wrong with being middle-aged.
Yeah, so it could have just been right.
Yeah.
If that was in fact your only reason, which I doubt it was.
Yeah.
But
And so, that's an example of an ad hominem attack. It's also not an ad hominem attack to point out that someone might have a conflict of interest. Often that's relevant in determining whether they are objective and impartial about what they're presenting, or if they have some other reason why they can't be regarded as completely objective about something. And I've got a couple of examples here that I want to use to illustrate when something is and is not an ad hominem attack. Okay. So in the first one, when Andrew Wakefield published his now debunked study that claimed that the MMR vaccine caused autism, among other things, a reporter uncovered evidence that Wakefield was at that time working on a measles vaccine that would have been a competitor to the measles component of the MMR. So is it an ad hominem attack to note that he had a conflict of interest in this case? Okay. The answer, of course, is no, it wasn't an ad hominem attack. The fact that Wakefield had a conflict of interest that he did not disclose is very relevant when evaluating the credibility of his claims. So it shouldn't have been the sole component in evaluating that, because it wasn't and isn't evidence that his claims were untrue. But it should increase our skepticism about those claims. He had a motive to present evidence that attacked the MMR. It turns out that science actually demonstrated that his claims were untrue. So the next question is, if we call Wakefield dishonest, is that an ad hominem attack? The answer is no. He lied. He was, in fact, dishonest, and he was ultimately stripped of his medical license as a result of that. Okay. The second example I have here is there was a guy named Daniel Carlton Gajdusek, I think that's the name, that's the pronunciation. He was a physician and a medical researcher at the NIH, and he was awarded a Nobel Prize in physiology or medicine in 1976 for his work on Kuru. Kuru is a prion disease, similar to mad cow disease. This was the first prion disease that was demonstrated to be infectious. And it was a result of Gajdusek's work that led people to understand that these were infectious diseases. 20 years later, Gajdusek was convicted on 12 counts of sexually molesting children. He was a pedophile. He saw nothing wrong with that. So the question here, given that his professional work provided him the opportunity to bring 56 children to the U.S., ostensibly for education, and then molested them, based on that, can we now dismiss his professional work? Okay? If you do, you've committed the ad hominem fallacy. The fact that he was a pedophile has absolutely nothing to do with the validity of his medical research. So in this case, he may be a terrible person, and he actually is a pedophile, but that doesn't invalidate his work.
Yeah, it's about, somebody's made a claim. Let's address the claim, and we need the information relevant to the claim. And you can say, you're an asshole, and here's why your argument's wrong,
Yes.
by the way,
Yeah.
and you haven't committed any fallacy.
Right.
But if you say that you're wrong, or that your research is wrong because you've done these evil things, whether they're true or not, then that's where the fallacy comes in.
Yeah, exactly. And, we see this all the time. People will say, oh, you're just an atheist because you want to sin. Okay, I might want to sin, but that's not why I'm an atheist.
I'm actually kind of embracing that lately. Beth and I talked about this, and she made a really good point, which is that's probably a reason why quite a few people give up religion and begin as atheists. And I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with it, because one of the things that comes up is this deal with sexuality and sex, and so the church is saying something that is against your very nature, and you may not have actually sat down and sussed this out and found the fallacy or sorted things through, and it may be more instinctive, but it's not something that we should just,
Right.
You're only an atheist because you want to sin, because quite frankly, that's a pretty good reason to not believe
Yeah.
that something is true if it goes against your nature. It's not something that we're going to see, in academic circles probably debating the existence of God. Well, God says I can't do this and I want to. That's not it.
Well, certainly, if the implication of you committing some sin is that you are now a horrible person and, somehow unworthy of, salvation or whatever it is the religion is offering you.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly a good reason to reject that religion.
Yeah, basically they're rejecting it, saying, I don't believe you. You have not sufficiently
Right.
made your case. And they may not be saying it in those terms, but
Right.
yeah, by all means. And by the way, it's, as somebody who rejects the very concept of sin, and this idea that you could offend a God, or that
Yeah.
it matters if you offended a God, or that offense is somehow a wrong. I don't know. If two people are engaged in an activity and nobody else is harmed, it seems that religion is saying, but there is somebody else harmed. This being up here who's all-powerful has been harmed by this thing that shouldn't actually harm anybody.
Yes.
That's kind of dishonest. So if you make that kind of argument, it's a bad argument for the reasons we stated, and you might be an asshole. But I'm just saying. Anyway,
Yes.
did you have more?
No, I was just going to add that if you go on and you refute someone's claims, and then you add on to that, and by the way, you're an asshole. The name calling may be gratuitous, but if you've actually refuted their argument, then it's still not an ad hominem.
It's not a fallacy.
Yeah.
May not always be the best thing, and that's before we get to calls real quick, let me just kind of ping this because tone trolling is going to come up over and over again. And people will point to different reactions. Well, first of all, that I've had on the show. Well, first of all, I'm human, so I'm prone to making mistakes. There's more than one occasion where I've had to apologize for digging in on something or flat out mistreating someone. But also, there's a time and a place for righteous indignation and anger. There's a time and a place for ridicule, and I think that some ideas are deserving of ridicule by definition.
Yes.
And that some people may only be responding to ridicule. I don't advocate ridicule and egregious name calling and stuff as a first response, but come on. If I spent 45 minutes explaining to you exactly what's wrong with Pascal's wager, and we can't even begin to get past the starting point, sometimes I'm probably going to drop a name because I've already put in my work.
Yeah.
But
Well, and
it's never a goal. People are like,
Right.
oh, I love watching the show because you make Christians look stupid. No,
No.
actually, they provide whatever argument, and they do or don't look stupid entirely on their own merit. You know, it's not my goal to make anybody look stupid or feel bad. It's my goal to be kind of honest, and sometimes honesty gets rough.
Well, not only that, but anyone who calls the show has the option of remaining anonymous.
Yeah.
So they don't have to out themselves as the guy that made the really stupid argument on the Atheist Experience. Some people choose to do that. And
Well, it's a handful that can't remain anonymous, like Ray Comfort or
Yeah.
Matt Slick.
yeah, those are pretty rare occasions.
Yeah, they've already made their bed.
But yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned tone trolling because, there's a hierarchy of disagreement here, with name calling being at the bottom, ad hominem is next, and tone trolling is right above ad hominem. So, if you're tone trolling, you're still in the hierarchy of bad arguments.
Yeah, tone trolling, by the way, is, for those who aren't aware, is this idea of saying, well, I agree with your message, but the way you're saying it is counterproductive.
Yeah.
And it may in fact be counterproductive, but if you don't have any way of supporting that claim, like I hear all the time, for any given phone call, we might hear, oh, you guys are incredibly patient and amazing, and that was the best phone call ever. Or on the same phone call, we might hear from somebody else, you guys are a bunch of assholes. If you think you're doing anything good or you're going to convince anybody, then you're just wrong. You're never going to convince, first of all, there are people who say you're never going to convince religious people.
Right.
Funny, my inbox is full of emails from people just like that, and everywhere I go and every place that I speak, people come up and say that we have in fact done that. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then there are some that say you'll never convince them with the particular tactics that you're using, as if we only use a single
Right.
tactic here.
Yeah.
And you're wrong on that too, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's name calling, ad hominem, responding to tone or tone trolling.
Yep.
Right above that is contradiction. So,
Simple contradiction like nuh-uh.
yeah, nuh-uh. So if someone says you'll never convince anyone, you're doing more harm than good, and we just said nuh-uh, then that would be contradiction, not a very strong argument. Then there's counter argument, where Matt points out we have an inbox full of emails from former theists who responded to our arguments. So there. Then there's refutation, which explains, finds a mistake, explains why it's mistaken using quotes. And we do that frequently on the blog. And then there's refuting the central point, which explicitly refutes the central point that the person is making.
Yeah, and that's the one
So-
that's difficult to get to by
Yeah.
the nature of the subject sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
So that's a hierarchy of disagreement. And
There
so-
we go.
All right.
And now you know. Knowing is half the battle.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe. Or it's in the Library of Congress. Read more about disagreements in your library.
That's right.
I'm flashback into my Saturday mornings, but we've got Aaron on the phone from Camden, New Jersey. How are you?
Hey, how you doing today?
I guess you can't remain anonymous if we say your name and where you're at.
Yeah. Hey, I'm 16 years old. I'm the son of a pastor. We're church planting. We've moved from Philadelphia to New Jersey a couple times actually. But
What
Yeah,
what kind of pastor?
what's your question? I couldn't hear you.
What kind of pastor?
I don't understand.
Like denomination? Is he
We're Presbyterian.
Okay.
Yep. So sorry, my question was. Oh yeah, so I'm coming into this conversation. I'm stating that I believe that I cannot prove the existence of God.
Okay.
Okay.
because he's not something that can be observed physically. I can't give any proof because, well, yeah. Do you understand what I mean?
Well, by proof, do you mean that you can't absolutely prove it, or do you mean that it's not
Well, I can't test him physically in the natural world.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you believe that there's any way, so are you relying entirely on faith, or do you believe, I mean, I'm curious as to why anybody would believe something without a rational justification.
Okay, yeah. So, well, yeah, that's what our belief is based on faith.
Okay.
Okay, let me
Now,
ask you, I have a question for you. Do you believe that your God has any effect on the natural world at all?
Of course.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
then you can test it.
I can't test the existence of God.
If you believe
You
your
can test the
God,
effects.
yeah, if you believe your God has an effect on the natural world, you can test that.
And by the way, for most people, and granted, if you're saying that you believe only based on faith, then it doesn't matter whether you think your God affects reality. But for most people that believe, they're running around claiming to be little God detectors all the time. God answers their prayers, God performs miracles, God interjects himself in reality in ways that they claim to be able to test, or to detect anyway.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I digress a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, sure,
You
yeah.
had a question for us, so yeah, I want to make sure you get your question.
Well, I just wanted to know where your original position is for creation, because I haven't been able to pinpoint that. Because I've been watching your show for about a month now on YouTube, and for 90% of the people who call in are idiots. They just don't know how to. They don't know how to argue the debate or anything. They don't know how to present any valid evidence.
Okay, so, well, name calling aside,
Yes, ad hominem.
well, that's not an ad hominem yet, but, so what do you mean by creation?
How are we here?
Okay. How did the first living thing arise, or how did we?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the answer right now is we don't know for sure. There are some interesting ideas. There's a field called abiogenesis that talks about, how living things arose. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but if not, that would be an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, one of the reasons that Jen had asked what you mean by creation is because creation's a bit of a cheat, depending on what you're talking about. So if you're referring to the universe, for example, and calling it creation, then it's a bit of a cheat because you're presuming that it's something that was created or had a creator.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm not completely sure what you're asking, but I'll give you my quick 30-second breakdown. Big Bang cosmology is the best current model we have for the origins of the universe, although we don't understand it entirely, and we could be wrong. Evolution explains the diversity of life after the beginnings of life. It is it is a theory, the theory of by natural selection, that explains the facts of evolution. So there's there's no scientific dispute on whether or not evolution actually occurs. When it comes to the origins of life, as Jen said, we don't know. And some of us aren't willing to pretend that we do know by claiming there was a God involved.
All right, well, surely you do believe that there has to be something eternal.
I don't
know.
I don't know why you would say that. I mean, we don't have any evidence that supports that.
Well, I'm saying that because, so if I say there's a God, right?
Okay.
Well, you'll say, if I say God created the universe, well, you'll say, who created God?
No, actually I wouldn't, because who created presumes that we're talking about a who. See, who...
Okay, yeah. So
But I'm fine with you saying God created the universe and God didn't need to be created. What I'm wondering is why on earth you think that you need to take that extra step, because there's a point at which we can't investigate any further back currently, And so it's a mystery. And what you're attempting to do is claim that you've answered this mystery by something that you can't explain or describe, can't prove exists, and I don't see how that's a useful. I mean, we tend to explain things in terms of other things we understand, and so if you try to solve the biggest mystery in the universe, is why does anything exist, by appealing to a bigger mystery, how is that any different from saying that universe creating pixies who didn't need a creator started the universe?
Well, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm just getting at for anybody to believe that we are here right now, we have to believe in an eternal being, or
No, we don't.
We don't.
So-
And in fact,
so for instance,
I think that's an unjustified belief.
I mean, I believe I'm here right now, and I don't believe in an eternal someone.
so how did we get here then?
I don't know.
We may never know. But that doesn't mean we're justified in plugging, something like a God in there. I mean, you said earlier that...
No, even a cell could be eternal. It always had to be there for it to develop into where we are now.
that actually doesn't help your case.
I don't know what you mean, because cells most definitely, I'm not aware of any eternal cells or any eternal
Yeah.
anything, and all the evidence we have for cells shows that they're not eternal.
Okay, sorry. I guess I'm confusing you guys a little bit, but let me ask.
Well, what makes you think cells are eternal?
No, for something to be, so if, for instance, if you believe in the Big Bang Theory, well, something had to be eternally there.
No, something
before.
just had to be there before under some models.
Yeah.
Well, what was before that?
We don't know.
And that may not even be a valid question.
Yeah, before the Big Bang, if time actually began with that, may not be a valid question.
Okay. Well, then we can't.
What's
agree on
north?
that.
What's north of the North Pole?
Well, yeah, then we can't agree on that idea.
We can't agree on the fact that North Pole is as north as you can get, and there's nothing north of the North Pole?
There's the universe. I guess that's my vague answer to that.
Yeah, that's, you kind of jumped the shark there, because it's, north is a point of which there's nothing north of. That's the start. Everything is south of the North Pole. It's not like we expand north to the solar system and say that the moon is occasionally north of the North Pole. That's just not the way north works.
All right. So, I
So-
have another idea.
Well, I have a question for you, because at the beginning of the call you said that we can't test God in the natural world, but then you claim that God does have effects on the natural world. So those are contradictory claims. So my question to you is, if you believe that the universe and everything in it came into existence as a result of some God, what evidence causes you to think that? What piece of evidence points to a God?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question, I guess. And like I said, it's faith again that we have.
Sure.
Okay, but
I-
that's
Yeah,
not
so,
evidence.
I can't argue against people's personal revelations, and I can't argue against a claim that we just have to believe it on faith. All I can say is that I see no good reason to take anything on faith. Faith is the excuse people give when they don't have a good reason, because if you have a good reason, you don't have to appeal to faith. And as long as faith can be used to equally justify competing claims, I don't know why anybody would want to make an appeal to it as if it's a virtue. It's not a virtue. It's vice. It's gullibility.
All right. Okay. So I cannot give any evidence
Okay?
on how God. But
Okay.
here's what I'm gonna ask.
Okay.
It's sorry. I'm trying to organize my thoughts a little bit. So why wouldn't you guys want to believe in God?
It's not that I don't want to believe in God, it's that I don't believe in God.
And which God?
Yeah, which God?
You know? I
The
mean,
God of the Bible.
okay.
Okay. It's
So
not.
why wouldn't you want to believe in a being that loves you and that cares for you?
I don't
and
see that
offers
that's,
you-
first of all, I don't see that that's the character of the God of the Bible.
Yeah.
Why not?
Have you read the Bible?
Yes, I have, and you'll say that he's a malicious God, and
Yes.
Yes.
he condones slavery and
Yes.
such things.
Yes.
Do you think that that's not true?
That is not true.
So you
Where in
haven't
the
read
Bible
it?
does it, where in the Bible does it say that he'll relieve suffering?
You said that it wasn't true that he condoned slavery, so I'd like, have you not read Exodus 21 or Leviticus 25?
21:16?
The whole verse, not just cherry picking, the whole verse.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the whole chapter.
Is that what you're getting at?
So right there explicitly the Bible condones slavery and portrays it as the Word of God. So now either the Bible is wrong or God was wrong or you're wrong.
About slavery. Just that one little topic.
Well, I'm assuming you think slavery is immoral.
Well, where does your morality come from?
So you don't think slavery is immoral? You don't think it's immoral to own another human being as property?
Oh, it definitely is.
How did you determine that?
Yeah, you surely didn't get that from the Bible.
I mean, the Bible says the exact opposite. So you're not getting your morality from the Bible.
Well, that's based on your eisegesis.
No, it's based on
No.
the actual text. The Bible says the exact opposite of that.
Can you give me an example, or can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, it
It's-
specifically says that slaves are your property and you can pass them on to your children. It also says in Exodus 21 begins with talking about Hebrew slaves, and that if they come and work for you, you have to let them go after 6 years, unless you give them a wife and they decide that they want to stay, in which case you drive an awl through their ear, and they are now your property forever. By the way, that's the rule for Hebrew slaves. For other slaves, they're your property to begin with, and there are different rules for women than there are for men. But that's all kind of curious that you don't seem to know this, and yet you've come to the conclusion that slavery is immoral, and you don't seem to think that the Bible condones slavery when it's explicit. I mean, you would think if there was a good and wise God that cared about human beings, that amongst those, first 10 commandments, there might be one that says, thou shalt not own another human being as property. But it doesn't say that. Instead, it says the exact opposite, and you've come to a conclusion that disagrees with the Bible. So I'm wondering what you think is right and why.
Well, from what I've learned from my Christian school, I go to a Christian school in Haddonfield. But what I've learned about this topic, and I don't know much about slavery in the Bible at all. But
I got a video up on my private YouTube channel, covers it in great detail, verses and all.
Yeah, I was going to say, you should probably fix that. Because,
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to run around saying the Bible doesn't condone slavery, and then after we point out that it does, you're going to say, well, I don't really know that much about slavery in the Bible. Well, you didn't have to tell us that. We'd already figured that part out.
No, but what I've learned about it is that slavery, in a few verses in the Bible, that it applied to men who were in poverty, so they would be sold into slavery, because as a slave, you'll be able to thrive.
Really?
Under a master. Yeah.
Okay, and so somebody has sold you a ridiculous bill of goods. This is the excuse that theists, Christians in particular, often make when they're confronted with the fact that their book is patently immoral. First of all, it's absolutely absurd to try to claim that the Bible only supports indentured servitude, but I'll point out that I think indentured servitude pretty damn immoral as well, because there's no good reason to think that it's going to be equitably enforced. Second of all, it specifically says owning people as property that you can pass on to your kids. It also says that you can beat your slaves as long as they don't die within a day or two. Now, it says you must buy your slaves from the heathen who surround you. These people aren't people that owe you money. These are slaves. That's an explicit endorsement of the slave trade. Buy your slaves from the heathen around you. And then there are specific rules for what you can do about enslaving your own fellow Jews. And by the way, all of these rules only allow Jews to own slaves, because if you try to enslave a Jew, then you get plagues.
Okay. Well,
You have been sold some stuff that is not consistent with what the Bible actually says. This is a common apologetic tactic. It is an attempt to soften what the scriptures actually say, and you haven't bothered to look into it because you're just accepting whatever they feed you at that Christian school.
That's not what I'm doing, but I'm just
Okay.
to further give foundation to my idea. I'm going to say, what was I going to say?
Hey, does Jesus?
What do you believe about the end of? So what happens after this life? So do you guys believe like the world is going to end, the universe is going to end, right?
Well, the current model, I'm pretty
Eventually.
sure, shows heat death eventually. Yeah.
Eventually heat death, yeah.
Okay. So
Let me backtrack a second since we just answered that. Are you aware of Jesus making any comments at all about slaves?
not sure. I believe so.
Do you happen to know what he might have said? Like, hey, slavery
No.
is wrong? No, he didn't say that. He said, slaves obey your masters.
Yes.
The only good thing you could tell a slave is to free themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, go on with your next question about the end of the
Okay,
universe
so-
or whatever.
Why do you guys have any sense of morality? If you guys just believe that at the end
I'd say-
everything's going to be destroyed.
What difference does it make if at the end everything's
None.
going to be destroyed? Okay, so I've got a car. Eventually it's going to end up in a junkyard. Does that mean it's of no value to me right now?
Well, there's some hope because you believe that you're going to get another car.
No, I'm actively using the car right now. It's of use to me now. It's of benefit now. The fact that it's going to end up in a junkyard someday doesn't make it useless now, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so the fact that the universe and life is going to end, the fact that I'm going to die doesn't make this day unvaluable, does it? Right
No,
now.
it doesn't.
So, okay, so we agree that this day is valuable right now to me, right?
Yes, can say that.
Sure. So since I have to share space with a bunch of other people, it's probably in my best interest to take a good look at what benefits me and what benefits everybody and what harms us, and to work with other people to try to create the best now and the best future that I possibly can, because I'm planning on living beyond today, right?
Yes.
What more do you need?
I guess you've made a valid point, but
I'd highly recommend you go ahead and hit Google, and while this is a bit self-promotional, Google superiority of secular morality, and you'll find a big talk I gave outlining how to build a secular moral system, and how a secular moral system is in fact the only moral system, and that religions don't have a moral system. They make pronouncements about morality. And I'd also take a look at the Euthyphro dilemma. The idea that is something moral because God's commanded, or do the gods command it because it's moral? And actually it originally began as pious, but it works for morality too. If something is only moral because God says so, then tomorrow God could say that rape and murder are moral, and that would make it true. Well, that's obviously flawed. And if God only says that rape and murder are immoral because they're already immoral, then what do we need a God for? He's just a messenger. There's nothing about that God that has any bearing on whether or not rape and murder are immoral. There's a lot of big topics out there, and I got a bunch of people waiting on the line, so I don't want to. You're welcome to call back, and you can email tv@atheist-community.org, and we'll be happy to take more questions. But we got 4 lines and people waiting, and there's only 20 minutes left. So,
Yeah.
all right.
thanks for the call,
Thank you for
Aaron.
your
Right.
time.
Thanks. Actually, I'm glad we had somebody 16 years old who's obviously raised in a very Christian environment, who's calling the show to talk about this stuff, because that's actually the part about Explore God that I think is very valuable
Yeah.
for people.
And I point out that I get a lot of email from teenagers, and I am always reluctant to engage too much.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to necessarily be pissing off anybody's parents and getting into fights about whether or not I'm unduly influencing their kids. So the big thing is, and we got several emails from people saying, "Oh, my parents are making me go to church."
Yeah. Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Go, take lots of notes, ask lots of questions. If you ask too many questions, they may stop making you go. But it can't hurt you to take notes, because the more you understand about this, the better you're going to be able to have communications with people who don't understand it, which is 90% of the Christian community doesn't understand what they believe or why.
Yes. Now think about if you're in this situation.
I made up that statistic, by the way.
Yeah. Start thinking about this problem that you have think like a social scientist. So you're now an anthropologist or a sociologist, and you are studying the Christian tribe in their native environment. Okay? If you were in that position somewhere,
You can't go into their native environment until you're 18 or 21 in some places.
So if you were, in doing field work or something as an anthropologist, you wouldn't be trying to avoid, some tribe in their native environment. You'd be actively looking for this experience. So embrace it that way. Like Matt said, take a notebook, take lots of notes.
Yeah, and, I know some people, oh, it's boring, I hate it, it's whatever. Literally today, and I don't necessarily know that I believe this email, but there was one that came in, and somebody's 18 and going to college, and their parents are going to buy them a house near the university if only they'll go to church once a week. And I was like, I put out a tweet right away saying, if any rich Christians want to buy me a house to go to their church once a week, Beth and I will be there dressed to the nines. Okay?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm 18 and I'm worried about being indoctrinated. Are you kidding me? You're kind of past where,
Yeah.
if you cannot actually go to church and sit there and not be indoctrinated at 18, we need some other work.
Well, and if you're old enough to worry about being indoctrinated, you probably are not going to be indoctrinated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Indoctrination relies on the fact that you don't tend to know that it's going on, or that it's even a thing sometimes. But anyway, Ron in Brooklyn, thanks for waiting.
Yes, good evening, and what an honor to talk to the two of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I sent an email last week with 2 questions, and Tracy Harris acknowledged that she didn't have answers, so I'm going to ask them to both of you now. Okay, question number 1. The Vatican now accepts evolution as factual and true, so there was no first man, no Adam, no talking snake, no fall from grace, no need for Jesus to come to earth to offer human salvation. So how does Catholicism reconcile this? And question number 2, we atheists are always saying that there's no evidence or proof of God. So what would the evidence be that we would accept? I can't think of any, including having some spook appear before me who changed himself into different life forms, knew what I was thinking, and corporeally reproduced my deceased parents, and we had a discussion of things that only we knew about.
Sure.
Those are my 2 questions.
Sure.
Okay.
So the first one, I don't think that the Vatican's acceptance of evolution doesn't necessarily, it should, I agree with you that it should destroy their theology, because there was no first man, first woman, etc., no fall from grace, blah, 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 nothing to be redeemed of, no original sin. However, the Vatican definitely accepts evolution. They don't necessarily accept it in its entirety the way you and I would, and they managed to say that in addition to evolution, there was in fact this first man, first woman, in at least a metaphoric sense, if not an actual literal sense. I don't know how they work that out. So yeah, they're basically doing tap dances around evolution to avoid the problems. And there's some Catholics who aren't happy with it.
Well, and,
Well, that sounds like a typical apologetic.
Yes.
well, yeah, and I guess my other question for you is, have you asked Catholics this? Because, I have no idea what's going on inside a Catholic's head, but there are Catholic apologists out there that you could approach with this question.
Yeah, it would probably be the typical obfuscations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's you may never get a satisfactory answer. It's you might as well be trying to ask them to explain the Trinity to you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay,
You want to take the second question? What would we accept?
Yeah.
I can't think of anything right off the top of my head that,
Yeah.
I would accept.
I'm with you, Ron, in that I can't think of anything, and I think it would be arrogant of me to presume that I could distinguish between a God and some highly advanced technology that I'm unfamiliar with, etc. And so what I've said in the past couple of years is, I don't know what it would take, but if there is a God, that God definitely knows what it would take, and that God should be capable of doing it. And the fact that it hasn't happened means that either that God doesn't exist or that God doesn't care to convince me that he exists.
Okay, good answers.
Cool.
I don't want to take too much of your time, but what an honor.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate
Thanks,
the
Ron.
call.
Okay, bye-bye.
Have a happy Sunday.
Yeah, actually, I think God would be the last explanation I would reach for if something really weird and unusual and extraordinary happened.
Yeah, I mean, there could be a collection of different pieces of evidence that would lead me to believe that not necessarily that a God exists, but that whatever some people have been pointing to as God may actually be a real phenomena.
Yeah.
We can test intercessory prayer, and we have, and it fails, but if it had succeeded, we would have been in the position of saying, okay, now we need to investigate this further.
Yeah.
Which prayers, which denominations, which ones are working? And we would have to acknowledge that whether or not a God actually exists outside, that prayer has demonstrated that it has some usefulness. And if it turned out that only praying to Jesus actually had a statistically significant usefulness, well, that wouldn't necessarily be confirmation of Jesus or God, but it would be confirmation of the effects, which is all you can ever hope to do. Unfortunately, that never happens.
Yeah.
Ever. Ever. I don't care what miracles you want to point to, and Bubba Joe's limb regrew and nobody saw it but him and his family, or Tim Minchin's got a song about the cataracts of Sam's mom or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'd need good, reliable, independently verified, and preferably repeatable, testable, falsifiable confirmation. And now, if you think that's too much, which some people do, they're like, why do you have your standards so high? Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? It's like the biggest possible claim. And you want me to use the same standards for that I would if you told me you ate a grilled cheese yesterday. Come on. But since nobody said that today, we'll go on to John in North Hollywood. How are you?
Hey, man.
Pretty good.
Hi.
It says here that you've got proof for God's existence that doesn't depend on religion.
Yes, I do. And I just want to say I'm a little nervous while I'm talking, so if I sound a little funny, I'm sorry, okay?
Just go ahead and give us your proof, because the first caller we had today said it couldn't be done.
Okay, well, let me tell you, I have multi-religious friends, and the way I look at it is, I've read up on the Torah, I've read the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the way I look at it is you can't say one religion is right and say the other one is wrong. It automatically gives the atheist idea that all religion is full of poop, But this answer is going to satisfy everybody, because it goes. This is how it works. Atheists, scientists, even people of religion, all have to admit that there was a beginning. And as far as I know, that beginning that's been proven has been I think the atom, or whatever created Adam. Now we can say that.
The what?
Did you say atom or atom?
Yeah, atom.
A-T-O-M?
Yes.
That's not the beginning.
Okay, the thing that created, I forgot its name. Let me just tell you that whatever the first thing was, that's God, because God is supposed to be the beginning. So it's automatically the atheism is wrong, because if that you have a lack of belief, right? You believe that people. I mean that was wrong. Anyway, I'm a little too nervous, but the point is that God is real. Because even if every religion is wrong, we all look at it like the creator. We worship a creator, and we put in beliefs, as in like Hindus have their beliefs, Christians have their beliefs,
John?
Muslims have their beliefs.
No, actually, we don't worship a creator.
Yeah, and John, can you...
You guys will.
Yeah, but can you tell me anything about this creator that you think is real?
Yeah, well, I believe in Jesus.
Okay, why?
I want to give a satisfying answer to everybody. I'm not a hardcore religionist. I'm not a radical to say, okay, no, I won't listen to other people's ideas.
Well, Jesus was kind of a hardcore radical who you started off by saying you can't say one religion's right and others are wrong, and Jesus would disagree with you. So I'm having trouble figuring out how you...
Would.
Yeah.
He probably would. But see, I'm not a saint, so I can't say, I don't think for I think for myself, But I have my belief. I think
I'm good with people thinking for themselves.
It teaches you to be a good person.
Does it?
It does. It actually does. It's just people who abuse the religion, because nowhere in the Muslim religion, Christian religion, Jewish religion does it say go rape a little kid. No, that's humans. That's humans that go rape kids. All the crusades, Those are those people
So
confusing other people.
So I agree with you that nowhere in the Bible does it flatly say go rape a little kid, but I do not agree with you that the absence of a specific prohibition means that the Bible is teaching, or Christianity is teaching people to be good. I don't know how you got there.
Because if you follow the commandments,
Yes.
regardless of which religion you choose, even Satanism teaches you how to be a good person. You understand? And although while I'm on the subject of Satanism, I try
John?
to avoid Satanism.
John.
Satanism is much better. Yeah.
Yeah, John, you do realize that the commandments of different, well, actually not all religions have commandments, but the equivalent of commandments of different religions, that some of those are competing, right? That they can't both be true? And yet you're saying
Sure. I know. I understand that. I believe that as well. It's just that's why I said I'm not radical. I don't take my religion as to heart. I don't. Whenever it's
so it doesn't really matter to you what's
I'll
true?
listen to it and I'll learn from it.
It doesn't really matter to you whether it's true. You're just kind of picking and choosing the good bits that you like.
Of course. No. Not. Well, I follow it, but I'm open to people's opinions. Because it's look.
You follow what?
I follow my religion.
But yes. Does anybody else follow your religion other than you?
How so? Of course,
Well,
Christianity.
Well, I mean,
in my household.
you've kind of described this. You've described a rather esoteric religion that's pretty much the religion of John. It doesn't necessarily map to anything I'm familiar with. So, I mean, you may call it Christianity, you may not, but you seem to just kind of pick out whatever you want and follow that because it feels right to you.
Even if I do that, it's not wrong, is it? Even even if I'm
do you care about
what I want,
do you
and
care?
I'm a Christian, and then we say God's going to punish me for it, right? But you can't say God's going to punish me. God needs to tell
I don't think God's going to punish you.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get punished for it.
I don't think God's going to punish you.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
asking you whether or not you care whether your beliefs are true.
Of course, I would love to actually believe, Jesus is my God, he's the real God, but there's all these other gods, you understand?
Okay.
John?
I'm more of an open book.
John, yeah, you're an open book, all right. And so when I ask if you care whether or not your beliefs are true, and you say yes, so how do you go about determining whether or not your beliefs are true?
Well, they're look, okay. In Christianity, as well as every other religion, people follow these religions because it's their perception of what God looks like. See?
So it's just whatever feels right to you. That's what you go with?
Sure.
Okay. That's not a very reliable way of determining the truth.
That's not a
but-
path to truth. It's actually pretty much the exact opposite of what we would consider to be a reliable path to truth. One of the things about truth is that it is independently verifiable. That's how we figure out whether or not that's how we justify labeling some people delusional and locking them away, is because they care only about their own understanding of reality, and whatever they experience and understand is true to them. The truth isn't true to individuals. Truth is
exactly.
just truth.
But you just described humanity. Isn't that both atheism and religion?
No.
Because it comes down to the person. The person. If you give a great example to an atheist, okay, and he still chooses to not believe.
No.
Then
We don't choose to believe or not believe.
So it's not a matter of just choosing to believe. Atheism, first of all, isn't an ism. There's no dogma, tenets, rituals. There's nothing to it. It's just
I
a label
understand.
for people who don't believe in God. And so,
but there is a God.
okay,
Because the first thing.
I'm aware that you believe that, and I'm aware that you think you can prove it, but
I'll prove it right now.
you have not even come close to hardly attempting to do so.
Okay, I'll do it right now.
Okay, good.
Do you believe in the beginning that some particle, some energy, something created everything?
No,
Not
created
necessarily.
something, no.
And how was an atom created?
Don't know.
Yeah.
It says it. Somebody did research on it. That they actually proved that some sort of energy, positive, negative energy, collided and created an atom.
Well, I tell you what, why don't you email us with the peer-reviewed study that demonstrates that?
So
and we'll be happy to evaluate it.
the reason we're kind of doing this is because, and there's no way to not be slightly insulting, but it's clear that you don't understand the subject that you're talking about, and so your question is kind of ill-formed. Do I believe in a beginning? Well, I accept the Big Bang model is the best current explanation we have of the origins of the universe as far back as we can trace it. As we said earlier, what happened before then, or even if there was a before, is something I can't answer, and something that I don't think anybody can answer.
Because the Big Bang had to have a key element, right? The first thing, whatever it was, they say the dust part. I'm not sure exactly how the Big Bang works.
John, let's assume that I agreed with you, okay, that there had to be a first cause.
Okay.
Let's say that I agreed with you.
Then
What on earth makes you think that that first cause is a being that thinks and acts, and not
that's exactly why I said that I could satisfy the atheist. It's specific because it doesn't need to. We're focusing on disproving a religion. That's what you're.
No, you said you could prove God, and I said that even if I agreed with you that there had to be a first cause, you've demonstrated no reason to think that that first cause is a thinking being, let alone a God.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be conscious, but the idea.
So God doesn't need to be conscious?
The beginner, the creator, the one who sparked the creation, the one who created everything.
So you're just using John. You're just using the label God to point to whatever the hell it was that started it, whether it was a being or not, right?
Yeah.
Not remotely interested in that sort of taking a word and using it. If you think you could prove God by redefining God, why on earth would you bother calling us?
I'm not. To define God is saying he's the beginner, the one who created everything. And you're trying to make me give you.
John, I can redefine God to be this coffee cup, and I can prove to you absolutely this coffee cup exists. Does that sound honest?
It does exist, but did it create everything? Did it spark the creation? No. Was it the beginning? No. It was created. It was created.
Why on earth would you call the cause of the universe God without justification? Unfortunately, the show is over. We are out of time. Thanks, everybody. Sorry to the people waiting. I guess we'll take a couple shows after the call, or a couple calls after the show. Yeah, more shows after the call. Thanks. Jesus H. Look, he believes in God. He said Jesus H. Christ. Hey, Dave.
Hello.
I'm sorry we didn't get to you. I neglected to keep a look at the clock.
Yeah, it's a bit hard from the UK.
So I don't think creationism is a last-ditch attempt at preserving the Bible. I think it's the first ditch, and we've just never gotten out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, I noticed the caller Aaron, and I have hope that he'll go home and look at his Bible and think, whoa, I have been sold some untruths.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I think that's really possible in his case, because especially if he's been going to a Christian school, and it sounds like his parents have very carefully insulated him from any legitimate criticisms of the Bible. So
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm hoping that he actually opens his Bible and starts reading.
Yeah, I saw something pretty awful today. I was in the centre of Manchester, and this weekend is the Gay Pride Festival, and there were the evangelists, and they had, all their kids along and sort of, holding placards saying these people are evil, and of course, there they are quoting Leviticus, 18:22 or something like that.
Yeah.
While they're wearing their cotton shirts and silk ties.
Yeah, they're cotton polyester blends, and yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of amusing. Actually, our Pride Festival's here in Austin on the 7th. And I don't know that we've ever had any kind of big incident there, because Austin's just kind of...
Yeah, Austin.
It's hard enough to get people to even show up for some of this stuff. I apologize. We got to let you go, Dave. They're clearing up the studio, and I've got to get out of here.
Yeah. Okay, it was great talking to you and a great seeing the show. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Cheers.
bye.
Bug.
Okay.
I should let you just answer, John, but I was really, really trying to get John to say something, I don't know, coherent.
No, I'm with you on that. I couldn't figure out what it was he was trying to say.
It took me the longest time.
I'm
to
sitting
figure
there
out.
like,
He's just,
okay.
oh, I believe in Jesus, but I also just have this abstract notion of God. I'm not trying to prove my religion. I'm trying to prove that there was something and that people are going to label it God. Cool.
Yeah, I started taking notes here, and I got Adam, something incoherent, and then after that, it's like, okay, I give up. I don't know what the hell the guy's talking about.
Leave me alone.
Anyone here knows Fred Gills?
I am not.
I don't think I'm going tonight. I gotta actually go home and do some work.
Beth is planning to come with me next weekend. We're going to the Reptile Expo in Round Rock.
Oh, okay. Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, we're probably going to go do that most of day Saturday and then